type products and they bring it in, they have to they have to pay to send it in there, but then they're turning it into gas and sending it to someone for energy as well as its fertiliser for the farms all around it. So have you looked into that at all?
Yes, I've heard about it. In fact, I was on a webinar the other day. Yeah, same webinar. And I think that was sort of the first I'd heard about it. Obviously, this is it's happened out of Auckland. I think it's around Huntly Way, and then there's the new one in Christchurch that's being built 3 or 4 years away. But from what I gathered, and I don't know anymore, it seemed to be you had to be basically located adjacent to the biogas or the biofuel factory that was producing it because of the cost to transport elsewhere. But Councillor Scott may have a far better knowledge of that than I do. Yeah. So Venture Timaru championed that, and they have the information. But just from what we heard online, it didn't seem at this stage it was something that we would be able to pick up on. But obviously, once Christchurch opens up, we'll have a far better understanding. I think it was called Biogas, or the firm, yeah.
EcoGas, but
EcoGas, sorry.
The deals that they've done were based around the councils taking the commitment and signing a deal with them for a long term to make the business case, and then they would bring other stuff in, and they planted themselves close to somewhere that required the gas, and that they could put it straight into a boiler instead of trying to turn it into electricity, because you lose a whole lot of energy doing that. So it was probably more about two things: doing a deal with the main company that is handling all that food waste in the district, and then having a plant close to someone who's going to use that energy. So yeah, you're onto it. You're looking at it anyway. So
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting area and it's changing all the time. So certainly something we'll try and keep an eye on. I think one of the other factors we've probably got to limit us slightly at the moment, diverting, is that we do have a significantly long-term agreement with our current provider. So that may be something happening, but certainly something we'll keep an eye on. And it was a very interesting webinar, I must admit.
Yeah, and that's the positive about diverting the waste, is that it's not generating quite as much gas. So there was a couple of guys came and met with Andrew last couple of months, because they'd met with me previously on that, and they were doing some numbers around it. I'm not sure where that got to, but Andrew said it was quite interesting. But we might not be at the economically sustainable level to make it work.
Just for you, Alan, the chat that was in here from the record keeper in Geraldine's very up to date. Biodigesters, and I think he's in some talks with Barkers and some other areas now around how they could get rid of their waste, like you get rid of all DB's hops waste and all that sort of stuff. So there's plenty of food here for a digester, but it's just getting one off the ground.
Out of date stuff, and then they take the plastic off it, like cheese and stuff and all sorts of stuff, and then they put it in there.
It's got to be mixed with dairy effluent waste as well, so it gets rid of some of that stuff as well. So it does work hand in hand with lots of good stuff, but yeah.
That's right. I think we'll move that future discussions to a workshop. Right. Any further questions? Great piece of work, really good piece of education, as I said earlier, so thank you. I'm happy to move from the Chair the recommendation. Council receives and notes the waste levy overview information. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Burt. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. We will do this properly. We just need to move a recommendation that we go over 2 hours. So it's that highlighted one, is it, Steph? Is it that one?
The one with the sticky notes beside?
Oh, down here. No, 2 hours, or is it that one?
Oh yeah, that one.
Or is it that? Oh,
Yeah,
gosh. Yeah, so just a resolution that we go over the period of 2 hours as the agenda requires. I'll move that from the Chair, Councillor Puddington. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Yeah, 2-minute break, yeah. And then we'll get into the social housing report and Alrighty, welcome back everyone. So we're now on to agenda item 9.9, Social Housing 17A Insights Report, and I welcome Nigel's going to speak to that, and we've also got Diane in the back if there's any questions, and some of the team as far as building as well. So pass to you, Nigel.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the 17A review on our social housing has been going on for some time, and Nicole completed quite a large document, but coming to a recommendation on what to do became difficult because we don't have a strategy in which to inform a recommendation. So the Insights document was also produced to help with the 17A review, to give us a view on what's going on across the country and what is available. Now so the recommendation coming from all of that is that we need a strategy and a strategic view on social housing, and to do that we need a workshop, and our recommendation is that we get the councillors plus some other invited people into the room and actually talk about what would the strategy for social housing been in South Canterbury. And there are many, many options. When you look at across the country, a number of councils have gone different routes, and some of them, some I wouldn't go near, others I would, but it also goes hand in hand with opportunities that you can develop for social housing. So like page 141, when you look at that, the pink is what we currently receive in revenue, so the tenant, and also any sort of efficiencies, and the ratepayer, not our ratepayers, but Nelson City Council, some of it lands on the ratepayer. The blue ones are all the revenue potentials or investment opportunities that we miss out on. And we miss out on that partly from our structure. There is a number of various different Crown revenue streams that are available, but they're not available to councils. So a community housing trust may have access to those various different opportunities, whereas we don't. So I think this needs quite a bit of thinking and quite a bit of work in terms of where do we want to position ourselves as a district with social housing. We've also got to make sure that we take our tenants with us on this journey, because it is their home we're talking about. Now, I don't see that if we do this well, it would have any impact on our tenants. Our tenants should and should continue as they are, but it may open up some revenue lines where we could do more with social housing. Because at the moment, we've got 236 houses, flats. They're aimed at mainly the aged care. However, you might want to strategically think about broadening that. So again, that's a future discussion as well. So I don't think, it's not here for a decision, it's more here to say the report is here, have a good read of it, and then our recommendation is then we agree to have a workshop, probably in October, to actually work out what our strategic framework would look like. If I was promoting a workshop, I'd be bringing these people from Martins Jenkins in to actually facilitate that and to walk us through it, because they've obviously got a lot of knowledge in this space.
So just to extend on that, if we follow that page, just like to acknowledge Chris with his age concern hat, and he said the majority of our older people in our flats or houses are his clients as well. You've got funders, whether it be Mid-South Canterbury Trust. You've got a lot of interested parties, not-for-profits. There's also the opportunity to look at how we tie up transitional housing for the district in this space as well. So I would be keen that it's quite a community focused workshop. It's just not council, because ultimately if, these assets, whatever shape or form they look at, end up being in a community housing trust, then we need the community on board. So it's very much partnership approach. Councillor Piddington.
I guess for me, what was missing in here are the numbers. Like, what is the value of our portfolio? Because if we were to gift it, are we gifting it? Are we selling it to a trust? Because basically we only cover, the rents only cover the R&M. There's no depreciation, there's no cost of staff against it. So for anyone from outside to take it on, they would have to get the assets at a substantial discount. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I don't think we can discuss it all till we have those numbers as well, in some ways.
Yeah, and that's the Otautahi model, whereby assets didn't go over, they're just in a leased arrangement or something. So there's a heap of different models, but I think that there's going to be some people out there in the community that will have some pretty good insight. So I think it is a steep process. I agree, it's roughly $22 million worth of assets. We know that we're at least $500,000, under. We don't know. We think we're breaking even. We're probably not when we look at overhead, etc. So I think it's a iterative process again, isn't it? But the next step, in my view, is to have that community workshop.
And when you look at this report, there's a number have sold their asset holding, a number have significantly discounted them. Some of them have actually reserved some of the proceeds from those sales for various different actions. So there is a number of different options here that need to be thought through, and I'd suggest that we bring those numbers to the workshop to say, here's the portfolio this week.
Councillor Pye.
Fully supportive of having that workshop. I think that sounds great. Love the report. Probably not what I was expecting, but it was a great report. I'm keen at that workshop to have at least some high-level numbers, but I'm also keen to, the very first thing we do at the workshop or even beforehand is go, what problem is it we're trying to solve? And I know I've been advocating this the whole time, but so long as we're all clear, what is the problem we're trying to solve?
Where do we go to? We'll go this side. Councillor Shannon.
Thank you very much. Probably a bit of what Michelle's saying, actually, that when I look at this, what I can't help but think is, even at the very, very highest level, when we're thinking about our vision for the district, and we're considering, even before it is or is not a problem, what does social housing look like to us, and how does that fit with that vision before having our workshop and determining, going down that track in terms of affordability and what the vehicle is for or what have you. But we need to first know what is our vision for social housing in this district before we can even determine where that sits.
So I agree, but I think it's our vision. So it's what's the community need and vision as opposed to council vision.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
the vision for the whole district.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not at cross paths, we're on the same path. Anyone else over here? Gab, you're all right at the moment. We'll go Councillor Scott.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank you for the report. I love reading this kind of stuff, and it informed me a lot more than I actually already was, so thank you very much for that. When I looked and read this, I felt that our community is being disadvantaged, which is a real concern to me. And I feel like we've got two options, and we either look at expansion and redevelopment of our opportunities so we can play a bigger role in supporting our community with the housing, facing house pressures, or we look at a new delivery mechanism. And I think the report is very clear on what the next steps are, I thought. And, at that workshop, I'd like to know that we've visited Christchurch, the Hutt City and Auckland, who seem to have a similar model to what we're talking about if we were going to go down that pathway. I know that we're stretched at the moment with staffing and all of that kind of stuff, but, I'm willing to put my hand up and volunteer my time to put some effort into this. I think it's really important. So yeah, I think next steps are, do we expand and redevelop our current model, or do we look at another delivery mechanism? So that's just my 2 cents worth, but thank you for the report, it was excellent.
Councillor Booth.
Yeah, look, I thought we actually asked for a financial rundown on whether we actually were charging enough and recovering the costs it is costing our ratepayers to maintain those properties to a level to maintain their value, or is it spiralling downwards and we're borrowing money to do that? So first of all, a simple spreadsheet showing what the expenses are against the income. Why are we doing this? We are doing this to maintain a certain level of suitable accommodation for a certain group of our people, our residents here in Timaru. That's the reason why we're doing it. But it should not be at the cost of every other ratepayer, and potentially borrowing money to maintain low rents. So first of all, information is power. We need to know those financials, and that's the very first thing. And part of this report, it should have been clearly laid out what was what, so we actually are able to make decisions around based on fact and information. So it's great to see all the alternatives and the bits and pieces that you can do, and we've already talked about that. At the very least, we obviously need to change them in some format which actually gets government funding. So, but let's, at the very outset, find out what that liability is to the ratepayer and the condition of our asset base, how much they're worth. Information is power, and this report, while it does a whole lot of other stuff, it doesn't do the most basic thing where we need to start. Thank you.
I think...
So could I respond to that? So this report was never intended to do that. The 17A review is. The 17A review is sitting there ready to make some recommendations based on our strategy. We know we've got approximately $22 million worth of assets that are debt-free, and we know that it is breaking even. Now, you could argue that whether it is or not, depending on what you put at it, but it does have overheads put at it. So effectively, the next stage then is that the best we can do for our community with that portfolio, or can we do better?
I agree, but I think that page 109 is spelling out a little bit of what you're asking for, Councillor Booth. It does say that the cost to, replace and improve the properties is funded by council's reserves. So I think that's the first time we've probably seen that. But yeah, I believe that the next steps were to dive deeper. So I wasn't expecting a full-on blown spreadsheet, but it's in there in words. You just got to find them.
Alrighty, Councillor Piddington.
Look, to Councillor Scott's point, expansion I think is off the table, because if you build a new unit, the cost these days, you won't get the return. It's looking at other methods of delivery perhaps as a trust to protect those people already in the units, because I take the CE's point. I don't want them scared that we're thinking we're sending off to some land baron who's going to roll them. It's to improve the services, improve the quality of the homes and those sort of things. And if it's in somewhere like that, it will relieve the burden on the ratepayer. But there's kind of 2 points to it. Look after the mainly elderly in those units, because when you look at those numbers per capita or whatever, we've probably got one of the highest numbers. So I don't know that we need to build on it, but it's ensuring that delivery is done in a more efficient way. And to your point, the Chief Executive's point, there's a lot of funding as a council we can't get or aren't open to us, that it is through some sort of charitable trust.
I think where the KO report, moved it, and there's, further steps obviously, but, and I know Nelson, sold their houses to KO, which is interesting, but actually the model might be community housing trust into the future. So KO depends. It might not happen this term, but it might not exist. So how do you set your region up for success to be able to fund that? And I agree, I don't think we're going to be able to overnight turn it, but if you've got that charitable funding coming in, we know that we're probably $500,000 in the hole for revenue that we're not getting. $500,000 is straight away, an income stream to be able to build and renew and those sort of things. So I think there is enough sitting in there that can turn the dial. I'm going to go now to Councillor Burt.
Thank you. Just in terms of some historical significances, we've had this conversation many, many times in different iterations over the last 12 years, or nearly 12 years that I've been here, and it was the philosophy of, what part do we want or play as a district council in social housing, and every time without fail we should play a part. We should be looking after, it's one of our pillars in terms of what we should be doing and looking after our people, people who vote for us to be on here and what have you, and to what level, and should it wash its face, or should we be happy to, on behalf of the rest of the ratepayers, to make sure that they're provided with a decent accommodation at a certain level with appropriate maintenance, and that's what we want. So if we can in some other way without changing that too much, that our fingerprints are still over it and we still are one of the biggest, when you look at those figures, owners of social housing, if we can get other streams of finance, great. If we can't, we then have to go back to that original philosophy. Are we still engaged and want to be part of that?
Yeah, I think, part of this is for the, who's best to deliver this. And, I blur the lines a bit, but I look at community and council as the same thing. So if it's slightly off to the side, council's still invested in housing for, social housing or community housing for our community, but we don't need to be the, owner necessarily of it. If we want to be a council which makes the appropriate decision, it's looking past ourselves and our need to control, if you like. Councillor Booth, let's close this
Just the
up.
Chief Executive, are we actually able to get a one-page document showing that?
No problem at all.
Cool. Sorry.
Just before we finish this, I'm not sure if someone else wants to speak, but I think Diane needs a big rap here, because this portfolio over the last 2 years, the quality of the units have improved, and we're at nearly 100% occupancy, 98% occupancy, whereas quite a few years ago there was quite a number of vacancies. So, fantastic job.
Would you like to come and give us an update?
You're more than welcome to. Andrew, do you want to pop up as well?
A good news story.
What sort of update would you like?
To hear, Diane, how you managed to go from a wait list of 50 to 9. Is that because you got the rest up, tenant, healthy homes and got people in them, or?
Yeah. So when I started, there was about 40 units empty. That's not including 8 that were, I've just got renovated at the moment. So I just went through the waiting list. Some of the people dropped off the waiting list, didn't need a property anymore. Now I've got a waiting list of 23. I got it right down, and now it's starting to come back up. I've got 3 more units that are being finished end next week in Temuka, and then I've got 2 more units that just need to be slightly renovated, painted and carpeted throughout, and one of them needs a bathroom.
So,
Mr. Shannon, Councillor Shannon and Councillor Booth.
Brilliant, now that we've got you here. I'd just be interested in your thoughts here, excuse me, in terms of council's strategy, which identifies who is eligible for social housing. So currently it is you must have a housing need and receive one of the following benefits through WINS, being either Superann, a veteran's pension, there can't be too many of those anymore, supported living payment, but it's a health condition, or current equivalent permanent benefit, and a couple of other rules there. What are your thoughts on how people fit into those categories now? And are we missing a category, for example? And this is why I'm interested in us having a workshop and developing a vision that fits our community. How does that fit our community now in terms of those who have need?
From what I've had through the applications, is that fits our criteria, that fits the people that are coming through. I do have I do have younger people in our houses that are on supported living, so it's not just pensioners. I've got sort of an area for the younger ones. And some of the other ones that are coming through, and it's like you've got to think about the areas that you've got and the current tenants you've got. So you've got to work out if it's all going to fit. So a lot of the ones on the supported living, mainly, you sort of look at what they've got, because if they're out working, that's not fitting in with the current tenants that we've got at the moment. So yeah, I think it fits well, and yeah, I've had the odd job seeker person, but they've got the opportunity to work and to earn money to go into to rent in the private sector, and that's not. I don't believe that's part of our role to. Yeah.
So you basically, as say someone goes out, you'll refurbish and update with the healthy homes, etc.
Yep, they're all up to healthy homes, apart from the 3 that are being renovated in Temuka at the moment. I just need those to be signed off, but they're all up to healthy homes. So when a tenant leaves, we do renovate them. If they need painted, flooring, we bring them back up to a standard, to a rentable standard.
Yeah. So what percentage of our tenants would be basically receiving government support?
I'd say probably about 80% get government support on the through the accommodation supplement currently.
And Alan, more would if our rents were higher, but bearing in mind that our rents are artificially low.
The ones that don't qualify is because they've got more money in the bank account.
Yeah.
So at the moment you can have $8,000 for a single person. You can have $8,000 in the bank account. Any more you don't get accommodation supplement. So that's why the tenants don't get the ones that don't qualify at the moment don't.
Got money.
Yeah, don't get that.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, thanks team, and thanks Andrew as well, because Andrew's been busy getting them fitted out, so yeah, appreciate that. But yeah, good work. That's a great news story. Yeah, and this is on our, well, it is, isn't it? So, and this is on our top 10 priorities for the next year, so something we're keen to drive forward. Let's go now to the recommendations on the screen in front of you. Any further discussion before we, just getting used to them being on the screen. 1, receive and review the Martin Jenkins Housing Insight Report and agree to Housing Strategic Framework Workshop in October with community partners. How's that sound? Yeah, happy to move. Councillor Burt. Councillor Oliver. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Great, thank you. Now, I think we are on to minor nature. Councillor Piddington's list. So I've got it in front of me, and so we'll go to financials first. So, Andrea, would you please jump up? Thank you. So we can probably go financials, and while you're here, we can discuss the rates as well. Got rates. RFP. Yeah. No, that's all right. Alrighty, great. I'll pass on to you. We've got this piece of paper in front of us. What does it say? Thanks, Andrea.
Through you, Mr Chair. I'll give you a little bit of time to have a look at the summary for July and August. As we talked about, I'm not sure if it was a council meeting, committee meeting, but we talked about the end of the financial year having an impact on the first months of this year. And so as the team work through the annual adjustments, they are still having an impact on these figures. So they are continually moving. We found a couple of transactions yesterday that had a significant impact on July, but they actually related to May, June. So these numbers potentially through the audit process may change as we look for, because the auditors go through with a fine-tooth comb through the first couple of months of the new financial year as to did we pay for something in this financial year, so we didn't cover it last financial year? Did we receive any credits? Did we bill people in June last year and then credit them? So they look for all of those kind of things to see whether or not we're trying to move things within, prior financial years or vice versa. So these are draft year-to-date figures currently at this point in time. And we talked about that, ideally 10 working days, so that was Friday. But like I say, because of the annual time we're in, they are changing. So if we look at these here, we've tried to phase the budgets, so that's also proved a bit of a mission. But for the first couple of years, or the first couple of months, I don't think there's anything really that is standing out as being too far over or under at this point in time, other than finance costs. So currently our interest rates, if we were to take a loan out for 2 years, we would get a fixed rate of 4.12%. Now we budgeted 6%, so that may be an area, if the interest rates continue the way they are and we do have to borrow, then that will hopefully be a savings for this year.
A couple of other items that probably need a bit of commentary is personnel costs. You can see they're significantly higher than last year. However, we've got virtually full employment, so that is driving up that line in terms of the actuals. Depreciation is more in line with the valuations, and Andrew's just talked about the interest, and the other expenses is probably quite pleasing because it's $500,000 down on last year.
Alrighty. No, so I appreciate we are getting there as far as the financial. So is there any questions before we dive into the rates side of things? No, just keep going. Cool. Sorry, Councillor Piddington.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But you're talking about annual adjustments and the audit process for the end of the year. When do we actually complete that? Because that, you're saying, is in effect.
So the auditors start on Monday, and then their timeline is the 21st of October for any major material changes. And then so by that point, we should be, well, we will be okay. Yeah, so it's potentially got, September, there may be some changes. I'm hoping not, because we've done quite a lot of work for preparation for this annual report, hence finding information yesterday. So we think we've covered a lot of the areas that have been issues in the past around expenses and revenues. So, but you never know what the auditors look at, so they may pull something out of left field that we haven't even considered. So that's just a process that we have to
go through.
Typically, though, if it was to be an expense item, it would reduce these. Typically, they might find something in here that should be back then.
What are we going to do going forward, Nigel, though? So every month?
You're going to get a monthly financials.
Okay.
That's what we're doing going forward.
Okay.
So the disciplines have to be put in place, that they have a close-off date, and then we get it to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
And we talked about it last time, but we will adjust the meeting cycle next year so it works as best we can, yeah. And if not, I think we just have them sent once they're ready so they can go to elected members, yeah. Rates on the good, exciting topics.
Rates. So one of your questions was around rates and a lot of commentary that you're getting from the public. We said on average we would put our rates up 15% on average. So we did a little bit of an exercise. We used the top 4 properties on the piece of paper, all are within the same street, just to show some comparisons around depending on what you have, how much the value of your land went up, etc. So if we look at the first property, on average, if we ignore the dollar value for a start and we look at the rate change, so on average those rates for, some up, some down, was an average of 18%, but that particular property had an extra large compost bin, which impacted on their dollars. The next sort of 3 properties, even though the land value similar, had a 12% increase. Now, when we put our sample properties out, the average dollar increase was about $500. We said on average, a Timaru residential property would go up. So if we're just looking at Timaru, and we're looking at this particular street, a combination of how much your value of your land went up, then determined the dollar value that your property or your rates went up. So if you look at the bottom, the sort of middle 2, where you've got a land value went from 215 to 260, their standard set of rates, they went up $400. So, and then the property below went from 375 to 410, and they're actually, because of the lower value, their rates only went up $268. But when you go to the top property, it actually went up $100,000 or $110,000. An extra bin has then added over and above the 500 sample property that we put forward as part of the long-term plan. Obviously, your anomaly in the rates bills that are going out are your ECAM bills that are currently we collect on their behalf. So us collecting that on their behalf, we get 2% of the rates that we collect. So last financial year, 23-24, we were paid $232,000 for that service.
So the top one, if they didn't have a large compost extra bin, you take the $62 off that. You're starting to come back more to the next one. Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew, can you explain why, on average, though, residential rate has gone down and community W and S have gone down? Because that doesn't make any sense to me.
I can't explain that. The way that the rating system works is it essentially takes what those activities require, essentially takes those first, and then the leftover is then split between the general and the UAGC depending on what's required in those properties. So some have gone up, then some have gone down. So, we've only got one bucket of income. The bucket of income doesn't grow because we've got extra value or anything like that. The pie, just slices of the pie essentially get divvied up a little bit differently.
Well, in my case, on my property, then my land value's gone up because I get an extra bin, I took that off and did that, but my rates increase was 21%. And on my property, ECAN rates was 43%.
Yeah.
Okay. Not sure I followed the formula. Okay, so we get 232,000 from ECAN. What work's involved in that for us? Because that sounds like a great number, but if it's 3 staff we're losing, you know, and for the flack we get, if their increase is double what ours is, people look at the bottom line. Why are we doing it?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably for us to discuss in the process. It's ultimately a governance decision, but it would be interesting on consulting with the community on that one, because some people would be of the view, we don't want a separate bill. I know people just look at rates, but there will be 2 sides, so it would be interesting to, to have that conversation.
But my question is also, everyone's telling me we've got an income versus cost. We know we get 232 income. What is it costing us, staff-wise, time-wise, action-wise? Are we making any money?
I don't believe the analysis is done to that extent, but the process that goes on is we get a file or we get some information from ECAN, which we put through our rating system. We generate the invoices, send them out, collect the money, pay the money on. You get grief, my team gets grief, customer services gets grief. So I don't know whether in the past there has been discussions about getting rid of it, I'm not sure, but we would welcome that discussion.
Thanks, because it sounds like 3 lots of areas plus us are getting grief.
I don't think it's about, if you didn't do the ECAN, I'm not convinced you would reduce the staff very much at all, if at all. You're actually just getting that money for the service and the grief. Because, your rates officer will be needed, your customer service is going to be needed.
But I could argue that all day long. If we're doing less, we need less staff. But so are they manually inputted, or how are they?
It's imported. It follows along the same process. So irrespective of whether we've got ECAN on the bottom of our rates, the process for rate strike, invoices, direct debits, customer inquiries, all of that is the same for our core rates as well as ECAN. So we're not doing any, there's a little bit of additional work, but we're not doing anything significant that if you took it away, then actually
Sorry, Pete, I'll let you go next. So the 2%, why can't we get 5%? Was that set somewhere? Have we ever moved that?
No.
Good question. Good question. I don't know the answer. Peter?
So historically, exactly what you're saying, Councillor Piddington, has been said in every term that I've been in. We've had that same discussion. 2% has always been there. We've had that same discussion about, is it value for money in terms of the economy of scale of everything's there. We're tacking something on the bottom that gets crunched out, and $200,000 back in the day, I remember it was 120 or something. It's $200,000 now, is good value for money. So then you've got to balance that against the grief. There was always a discussion as, can't we separate them and put them out separately and still get our $200,000 so people get the ECAN, which is 47% of a small amount of money, as opposed to 12, 15, 20% of a significant amount of money and that sort of thing. So, and the churn was always there, and we always got back to square one again. This has been an exceptional year, though, you have to say, in terms of our exceptional numbers in regard to what we put up and they put up, and the average person, as we know, has no concept. When even at election times we hear them telling us, why aren't we doing this, that and everything, go, that's ECANs. This is Timaru District Councils and all that sort of thing. So it's really what we are willing to put up with in terms of grief, I think, at the end of the day.
I think it's a worthy discussion maybe in about a month's time, once we just get through the current few hiccups. Councillor Booth.
Just looking at your rural numbers there, average 8%. Did you do a bit more work on that? Because that's obviously half of what they should have got.
No, that was just an example that depending on where you are, what you have, rural was a little bit different in that you could be on this scheme, that scheme, be on the side, on a lifestyle block and still have rubbish collection. And so rural was a little bit harder. We just put that one in there as a sort of to show, I guess, that it is different for different areas.
And I guess the service, downland service chart number, is that for the recent upgrade? Would that be a targeted rate for the recent upgrade to the system that we've just spent millions on?
So that the downlands rate is based on the income that they require for that particular year. So it works the same as all the other water schemes, is here's the costs, now this is the revenue that we need to collect to cover those costs spread over the number of units within that scheme. So it varies depending on the cost required.
So is that something that's increased significantly in the last couple of years? Because we've just spent that, I don't know, was it $40 or $50 million on it?
Yeah, so you'll probably find that'll kick in next year going forward.
All right, okay.
I'm on the Downland scheme, Scotty, as the chair, and the first year went up 20%.
Just checking to make sure that you rural people were paying your rates.
Yeah.
Councillor Pye's very quiet over there.
You're getting a good deal.
I think you'll find in the ones that we had in the long-term plan that use a different rural property, and they were actually up 21% or something in the end. Yeah. Sorry, I just had one to go back to the previous discussion when we do talk about this in a month. I just want everyone to remember who we are here for. And I have this argument with our industry bodies in primary industry all the time. I would hugely resent paying twice for a rating invoicing system, being an ECAN ratepayer and a TDC ratepayer. And I think we need to have that as our starting line, is who's actually paying for this, and it's the ratepayers.
And balance that with, it'd be interesting to talk to the ECAN councillors. I'm sure we've all had lots of communication around rates. It'd be interesting if they're getting the same communication, because it's our staff that have to put up with it and not their staff. So honestly, I was up at ECAN this week, and some of them just seemed immune to the fact that the rates bills were out.
We could just put their phone numbers on the rates invoice.
Yeah. Councillor Booth, and then we'll try and close this one
Just
up.
an example of, my rates were up 25%, property in town, and 21% excluding the bid. And I just looked at the urban transport number. It's actually quite significant. My way is really going to it's costing a lot of money, and it's going to cost more money. So I'm quite concerned about that. But anyway, thank you.
So no public transport and no bid, is that what you're advocating for?
So that's ECAN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks, Stu, and then we'll close up.
My last thing on rates is our urban rate has gone up urban waste has gone up 59%. Can I get an explanation of why that's happened? Because that's extraordinary.
And this is the challenge that a few years ago we had a reduction, and now we've, thanks, Susie. In the hot seat.
No worries. Yep, I'll do a bit of reading because I've got some fill-in from Andrew. So basically the previous LTP, the budgets got split between, or the revenues got split between curb, which was supposed to be targeted rate, curbside, and also landfill, which was supposed to go to general. That split didn't quite occur to the level that it should have, so we weren't fully recovering through the solid waste charges. So that was fixed in this long-term plan to split the curbside and not split the curbside, to recombine the curbside and the landfill. So it is now charges a targeted rate, and it is fully recovering now. So it was actually a gap from 2018 where there was similar costs. 2021 there was a drop, and then the 2024 it has increased to fully recover the cost.
Cool, didn't understand a word of that.
Sorry.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, so what happened was there's a split between there's the general rate and then the curbside. When they split it, they got it wrong. They put too much to general, they're now putting it back to curbside. And that was discussed with the LTP, and it's been discussed quite a number of times here. So that was a correction. And potentially that might be why you see some of these general rates have dropped, because it's gone to curbside.
So we will keep moving. We're going to go now to Egantai. Welcome. Who's going to speak to that? Beth, welcome. Thank you. And sorry, Stu, could you just go back to your question on Egantai for Beth?
Last time we wrapped Egantai up, and because there was a surplus, we went for the HVAC system and the toilets. Then last time Matt presented, he said there was some strengthening to be done on the north side round the windows. They weren't quite sure what it was, and it hadn't been costed. So have we got a cost for that now? And when's it happening? Is it affecting the opening date?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that as standard practice, those reports actually go up to the Standing Committee, the Community Services Standing Committee, which is scheduled for the 8th of October. That report will follow due process at that date. So that will have all of your costings and your normal report.
So just to add to that, the rods are in. They're in the concrete. We're waiting for the concrete to cure. Matt can fill in on this. And once it's cured, they'll tighten them up. So the job's gone well.
So there's no additional cost. That was all covered. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Perfect. Okay, RFP, Nigel, you're going to speak to the next steps.
Yeah, so I keep forgetting to put that on. So the tenders close on 24th of September. We've got an evaluation team, which is Andrew Dixon, Mike Wrigley, who's the user. We've got the project manager from Waitaki for their stadium, Eric Van de Speck, and also an external project lead, Jessica from ADT. They'll do their work on the evaluation. Once they've done that evaluation, a report will come through to tenders and procurement, and then it will go on to council. We're hoping to get it to council on the 5th of November. The backup date is the 26th of November. The reason you need a backup date is that depends on the quality of the tenders, because there may be questions that have to go back. We don't know that yet. Once we've got the decision made, the project manager is going to be Matt from our property team, and Rawlinson's will be the QS.
Alrighty, any questions on that? It's all digesting, yep, that's cool. And then the other one was, sorry, I'm not sure who's going to speak to this, Susie, sits with you, but it was in regard to the flights and the bird strikes back in February. What was the detail of that, Stu?
The 2 flights got cancelled. Some of the local farmers thought it was because we hadn't cut the grass and done our maintenance and the birds had come from there. There were lots of conspiracy theories why the planes didn't take off. I just want the public to know where we're at and what was resolved from that.
Okay, sorry, I'm probably not going to help the conspiracy theories, because I'm going to have to say I don't have that information. It will need to be deferred to the standing committee. Sorry, I haven't got that, Stu, but yeah, I'll brief Andrew and Stan and we'll be able to get some information.
Well, I think this is through you, the CE. When something hits the front page of the Herald, round services, whatever, I think it needs to come back to council and be told what the public resolution is, or at least kept up to date. Thanks.
I must have missed that one. Did they ever? did that hit the front page?
It's on the front page of the paper twice, 2 days running. I've got it here if you want to see it.
Oh, no, I'll just have a search. Yeah, I missed both of those.
Just a question for Susie
Oh, so-
around the.
Oh,
the
sorry,
car
hold on,
parking
Alan. Just
at the airport
Alan,
and
Alan. Sorry, just hold on. One conversation. Sorry. So was that back then? I saw the articles back then, but
Yeah,
subsequent.
February 8th, but I've had people
okay.
asking
Yeah.
what was
But what you're saying is we haven't been able to
of the
close.
investigation.
Yeah, we haven't been able to close that off and give.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, that's your point. Yeah, no, gotcha. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I thought there was a recent
My
article.
understanding, there was quite a lot of work done, and it was the resolution was birds migrating from the
Wash
Dyke Lagoon, and their track was going across. And effectively, that was the cause. So they did something to actually, Air New Zealand then changed with the direction, the natural direction of takeoff. Instead of going south to north, they turned it around to go north to south because they could avoid it. That's my understanding of what the resolution was.
That's right, but we'll get that clarified. That's good. Councillor
A
Booth.
couple of things around the car park and the car park payment system not working and the barrier being up and everyone just driving out not paying. Has that been rectified?
So we have tried to repair it, but it's at the point now where it does need a new system. So we are looking at the systems that we can put in that will manage that parking and ensuring that we can get cost recovery from that parking much better in the future. I haven't got a time frame on that, sorry. Again, I'll have to refer that to the upcoming Infrastructure Committee.
Thank you.
So the arm and the system that's working, we're getting a refund? Because that car park hasn't been there that long.
Again, I'll have to refer that to the Infrastructure Committee. Apologies. I haven't
Yeah, no,
got
that'd
that
be
level of
good though,
detail,
but
yeah.
if something's not working,
Yeah, I think it sits outside of the warranty period for that type of machinery, but
Not my department, but I do have some history. That car parking machine is the original one from the Sophia Street car park, so it is very old now. So that's, yeah, it probably is due for replacement. Yep. As going back to the original question though as well, there is still an active transport investigation involved with that incident. So there has been no sort of official findings yet. What Nigel was talking about was mitigations are put in place until that report comes out. Normally takes about 12 months for that to happen.
was it CAA doing that? Because it's not showing on their website.
No, higher than that. It's the Transport Accident Investigation Committee.
Matt?
Perfect. That's good to know. Alrighty. So I think we tidied those all up. We will go now. We've just got some public excluded minutes to confirm. So we need to go now to public excluded. Thanks, everyone. I'll move us into PX. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Parker, thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried.